So software-defined wide area networks, or SD-WAN, more popularly, I guess the bigger enterprises would probably expect and familiar with them all using it, but why would the SMB community, what would be the reasons for them, and is it affordable, I suppose, because again people might assume that, you know, for a small organization it's quite an expensive thing to do. So are you able to unpick that question, if that's all right?
Yeah, certainly, Phil. So I think the landscape's definitely changing. There's more providers now able to offer SD-WAN services. I think when the technology was first being brought into the market, it was very much by companies who were looking to distribute hardware, so appliances. And I think over time that has changed, and now there's different ways that SD-WAN is available. And so I think that's certainly to the benefit of SMBs, because it's now not the case that there's a huge outlay of cost up front to purchase a device and then try and get an IT team to understand and implement that into a network environment. Companies such as Aryaka are able to offer that now more as a managed service, and take away a lot of the upfront cost and a lot of the complexity of deploying it, which obviously lends itself then to that SMB space, not having to have that in-house expertise, not having to have that big outlay of upfront capital to purchase hardware, but being able to consume it as a service. So I think definitely changing. I think as the technology matures and as we see consolidation of network costs as well, that therefore becomes more affordable. And we're definitely starting to see traction in that mid-market space, which maybe 3-4 years ago, it was still too high a bar for entry for a lot of SMB type organizations.
And I'm wondering as well, as you say, the cost, the fact that it's more affordable is attractive, but is it also the case that SD-WAN is a potentially helps companies in terms of transitioning to the cloud? Is that another thing that maybe is why they're looking at the solution?
Yeah, absolutely. It can do. It depends on the customer and their environment, but absolutely connectivity into the cloud service providers, the way it optimizes that connectivity, the ability for, say, a solution such as Aryaka's to apply compression and other clever technologies into that network infrastructure means effectively that customers don't have to keep the arms race with making network connections bigger and bigger and bigger as users need to consume more services. It does it in a more clever, I guess, way. And I think definitely security is also a consideration, especially when you're trying to get to locations outside of your environment where typically services, applications would have maybe been hosted within your environment. And I think SD-WAN, and as we move on, we'll talk a little bit about SASE and zero trust networks. That capability is helping customers move to the cloud with more of a sense of control and security.
Okay, and I suppose the million-dollar question, if or whatever it used to be on that quiz program, the big question is there are lots of SD-WAN solutions out there. So I suppose whether you are one of these SMBs or one of the resellers that are potentially going to source a solution to then sell on to the SMBs, is there a sort of set of must-haves for any serious SD-WAN solution plus some optionals? I suppose what I'm saying is how are people able to how can they make a good choice with so much so many competing solutions out there? What should they be looking for?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's horses for courses, right? We have a very a unique, we believe, way of delivering SD-WAN. So Aryaka was built to deliver SD-WAN. That's the sole purpose of the company. That's why we were established, and that's what we've always done. So SD-WAN as a service is a native capability to us. We've built a network, we've built a technology stack with that one simple purpose of delivering SD-WAN, and as we go forward, SASE. That's not always been the case. If you look at the SD-WAN marketplace, you've had some people who that they are creating boxes you know, boxes which are very clever for sure, but they want to be selling that hardware, and then it's over to the end customer to configure that, make that work in the customer's environment, and try and maximize the potential of that hardware. And some customers do that very well, you know, so if that's the mode that you're looking for, you've got big IT teams, lots of experience, you know your network, you know your applications, and you want to be the person who sits there and optimizes how that hardware performs in your environment, that's absolutely fine. But Aryaka's managed network, managed service approach is very different. We want to take that complexity away from the customer and effectively give a turnkey solution and give them visibility and control of their network without them having to have that burden of trying to optimize someone else's technology stack into their environment. So I think there are lots of different ways and lots of different approaches that providers of SD-WAN come from. Some are network providers where they're buying someone else's SD-WAN box to sit on top of their network. And as I say, some are creating the boxes themselves. For us, it's a service. It's our technology stack on our network delivered to customers as our service. And that allows us, one, we believe, to provide a better quality of service, to provide a more optimal experience, to provide more control and visibility. But I guess also the other thing that it does is it allows us to deliver a much more resilient SLA because we control everything and everything was built for purpose. So I think it very much depends on where the customer's coming from, and to a point it depends on the relationships they have. If they're heavily tied into a certain vendor and that vendor has an SD-WAN solution, then maybe that's the easiest path for them to go down, and we sometimes see that. Whereas other customers, they don't want to have that hassle of trying to get something to fit into their environment. They just want to outsource it, and that's where we play really well.
Yeah, and I guess in particular we're talking about SMBs, and many of them, I'm expecting the majority just won't have the in-house expertise to do what you said, you know, to take a solution, configure, optimize it. So what you're offering is very much a sweet spot for those people that think, yes, we want that solution, but we don't have the time or resource to sort of build it ourselves to a certain extent. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. I mean, as I say, we do this day in, day out. This is what I always say to partners, this is our purpose. This is what we were created for. You know, quite often people think about a managed service and think, oh, that's going to be really expensive. Well, yeah, in isolation, if you were just doing everything once, that would add a lot of cost. But once you scale, once you have teams that this is their day job, right? This is what they're trained to do. Then we're able to offer that out as almost as like an outsourced SD-WAN department for an SMB's business. We can configure and control it. You know, the portal, the UI, the visibility is fantastic. So then the customer can get as involved or, you know, take that step back. So yeah, absolutely. I think the key is, yeah, we do it as a service, and we do it multiple times a day, onboarding new customer sites. And so if you're an SMB, my advice would be don't try and get involved in something which isn't necessarily maybe your core focus. Let a company that does that provide you that value and give you the power of the capability that we've got, and you can harness it in a very easy to consume way.
Okay, and then moving on, as your background shows, and you've referenced a couple of times, secure access service edge, and then there's something like zero trust network access. So I suppose the next question would be, are people better off investing in an SD-WAN solution first and then adding things around it? Is it less painful, if that's the right expression, to put it all together at once? I suppose what does that overall landscape, as your graphic says there, you know, network plus security, should it be looked at in one go, or is it possible to build it out gradually until you've got what you need?
I think that's another good question. And again, I think it comes from the provider and the transformation journey that maybe the customer has, and where they are, what they've currently got in their in their network in terms of their vendor of choice for security, because for Aryaka, it's a service that we can just turn on. So the consideration, if you take an SD-WAN solution from Aryaka around SASE or zero trust networks in the future, it will be as simple as just turning that element of the service on. For other providers, that's just simply not the case. It's very much a different stack for each different service that you want to run. So SD-WAN would be someone's technology. Then if you wanted SASE, it'd be someone else's technology. And then, you just keep bolting on different technologies. And again, sometimes that works. But we see even in the largest providers in the security sector that sometimes that comes with complexity, and it's very difficult. It becomes siloed. You get passed team to team to try and problem solve why the stack's not working as you would want it to. And again, that's feedback that we get from customers, which is actually, we don't want this complexity. We want something which is simple, that a single phone call can come into a service desk and resolve with someone who understands the full stack. And again, that's where I think we differentiate, because it's a native capability. And absolutely, we partner with Palo Alto, we partner with Checkpoint, so we can spin their services up on our, what we call ANAPs, our access, our Aryaka network access points, which sit at the edge of the customer's network and allow the customer to connect into our core services. So absolutely, we can run those services on our network, and you can then maximize, if you're a Checkpoint or a Palo user, the benefit of those technologies. But equally, we've got our own native capability, so it can be a fully Aryaka owned, built, and managed service as well. So I think, again, it really just depends where the customer is on their transformation journey. And for some customers, they'll come in via another security vendor, and we'll help them transform over time. And others just want a complete fresh slate, and they'll come straight into a native Aryaka environment, and they'll consume both SD-WAN and SASE services from us.
And apologies if this is a stupid question, but is it obvious for people engaging with a potential supplier of these solutions how, if you like, native the stack is in your case, as opposed to sort of bolted on and integrated? And as we know, every time there's an integration, there's the potential for it not to work quite as well. So so if they're talking to a different vendor, says, oh yeah, we've got all this in this stack, is it easy for that end user to then unpick and say, oh, actually, you're using these different vendors, and I'm not quite convinced, as opposed to yourselves where you say, yeah, we built the whole thing this way, so it's completely one solution? Is that easy to differentiate?
I'd say probably not, and that's a challenge, right? And that's, many organizations aren't going to stick their hand up and say, actually, yeah, this is a solution that we will piece together for you, and we will try and get it to work as smoothly as possible. No one tells you that. So it is difficult. My advice would be, have a proof of concept, try and get the stack to work in your environment, test it out. Don't just watch a video and think this looks great, believe the hype. Actually test it and see how it performs, see the visibility, see if you have challenges, which invariably you will. There will be little things, there will be little configuration changes that need to be made, and optimizations and things which don't quite perform in the way that the user has expected. Put a ticket in and then see what the response is. And if you get very quickly through to someone who can solve that solve that ticket, solve that issue for you, and it's an easy, simple process, then I think, you can have more confidence. And again, that's one of the areas that we always talk to customers about. You hear a lot of people talk about customer experience, and the reality is no one's going to go out to the market and say, we've got really bad customer experience, come and buy our solution. You're not going to do that. So the way to go and test that, from my perspective, pre-sale is proof of concept. Go on that journey, put trouble tickets in, whatever time of day you want to do it, and see what type of reaction that you get, and see if that's going to fit your business need, because we probably win a fair chunk of our business from customers who've gone with another provider and then felt that the service doesn't meet their need, and come back to us having had an initial discussion with us and decided to go with their existing incumbent provider because maybe that was an easier route. They come back to us, go on that proof of concept journey, and realize very quickly, actually, no, what we said up front was the truth. It's our native capability. It's what we were built to deliver. And actually that experience then is very differentiated.
And just on that ticket front, obviously the time to resolution should be a fair indicator, but also, I mean, in the case of a vendor who's, or someone offering a solution that's got various other companies, if you like, behind it, would they also potentially push you off to those, or would they at least try and mask it and try and deal with everything themselves? But the fact that it's taking hours, if not days, suggests to you that maybe they're having to get an answer from somebody else. Or would it be as simple as them saying, well, actually this problem isn't ours, but you need to talk to our partner here? Are they that transparent, or is that it's not that obvious?
We see both. We see, especially if you've got multiple, if you've got a security provider, you've got an SD-WAN provider, and you've got a network provider. We see customers coming to us saying the big problem we have at the moment is one person says it's one's problem, another says something, and we can never properly get to the root cause of whether it's a problem with SD-WAN, a problem with the security vendor, or whether it's a network issue. And I think that's where providing the complete solution as a managed solution really changes the dynamic, because we will provide everything. So we won't push you and say, well, actually, that's the network problem. Like, if you want to bring your own network, that's absolutely fine. But I'd say at least half of our customers want to consume everything. So network services, SD-WAN and security from us. And therefore we don't get that pass between. So I definitely think some companies are better than others in terms of how that handoff into third parties happens. Some are more experienced delivering those solutions, so can do that first line, second line support a lot more efficiently, and others you will definitely see the cracks. So I think it's difficult to say that you definitely would notice it straight away when you put a ticket in, because there's very good technology out there that other providers have been using for a number of years. So it's not always to say that everything's bad, but it's definitely a proof point that you want to go and test as you take your company into this area. Because let's be completely honest, I think now more than ever, network is the heartbeat of many businesses. People are now relying on network technology to operate their business, to access applications, access customer critical data, to keep their supply chain moving. And that's 25, 30 years ago. Technology was coming into play in businesses, but it wasn't absolutely critical. You could still function as an organization if you lost your phone lines. It was difficult, it was painful, but there were other mechanisms. Whereas now, if a company loses its network, it can be terminal very quickly.
Yeah, and what you say there perhaps leads on to the next question about how big is the opportunity, or how can SD-WAN offering help resellers or managed service providers to grow their business? I mean, the topic's been around, the technology's been around for a little while, but is there still vast amounts of customers that potentially don't have a solution or not the right one? So it's a big opportunity. Just thoughts as to the opportunity for resellers in this space.
Yeah, I think the opportunity is definitely there. I spent many years in the telecoms world dealing with the channel, working with MSPs, network resellers, and the difference between 5 years ago and today in terms of what end customers are asking for is huge. 5 years ago you had some people looking at SD-WAN. now I think pretty much everyone's going to be look at SD-WAN, outside of people who have very bespoke use cases where they need very high bandwidth or extremely low latency for trading. I'd say 80% of businesses now, when they look at network, look at SD-WAN. So there's definitely a huge market opportunity there. I think the other thing to consider to the channel is, for sure, there is a lot of consolidation. There's a lot of price compression in that network space. So it's, you may be sat on a base of customers where you've got healthy margin and you've got healthy revenues. As those customers come to renew, the choice, the pricing available is a lot lower than it would have been when they signed 3, 4, 5 years ago. And therefore, how can you hold that line or grow that revenue? And I think SD-WAN and increasingly SASE will provide a pathway where not only you can take existing revenues, you can help customers optimize maybe their network spend, but then you can give new revenue streams through SD-WAN with the visibility, management capability, the optimization it gives customers. So that would be different from an MPLS type VPN setup, but then increasingly it brings you into that security space. And there's good margins in that security space, which maybe as a network operator, your customer has typically dealt with another organization potentially to provide the security side of things. Maybe you provide some on-site firewalls, but they could be one-time type costs, and you can turn that all into an annuity revenue stream. So I definitely think there is upside, but again, it depends where the customer is coming from. If they're a customer who's consumed a lot of very expensive MPLS technologies, the idea of being able to grow your revenues on day one may not be a reality. It may be a hold the line situation, but for a lot of resellers and providers in the channel, there is definitely opportunity, one, to take market share off the big incumbent providers where customer service is a challenge and maybe they don't want to play in the SMB space anymore because of the high cost of delivering and supporting those customers. There's a huge opportunity there for smaller, more agile organizations to take that market share, that wallet, and deliver a better quality of service and offer the customers a more attractive overall solution, both commercially and in terms of the technology being deployed.
Just one other thought. I mean, I think we mentioned earlier in the piece about SMBs maybe not having the right levels of people and or skills, but also for the channel. I mean, the way you're offering SD-WAN, does that help the channel when skills are at a premium? Is what you're offering enable them to offer services without maybe necessarily having to employ sort of dedicated or very specialist people, because they've got your solution and you're behind it to help them? And also for end users, I say, obviously, if they're getting this service, then they don't have to think about the cost of either training up somebody already there or getting in some more skills to cope with the solution. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say to partners, we don't want to take away the bits that you do well. So if you're very technical, then we'll work with you. It's a come as you are type scenario. So we will do as little or as much as needed to help resellers and managed service providers deliver the Aryaka solution in the way that they want it delivered to their customers. So we can very much sit at the back and support the technical teams from a third line perspective, but equally for some partners, we very much sit at the front and we're very prominent in terms of delivering the first line, second line, and third line support. And we have a spectrum of different ways that we partner with global organizations, some very large, some which operate at a smaller scale. So absolutely, we can start in one form. We can be a very hands-on organization as the partner gets up to speed, and then over time we can take a step back, because as I say, channel for us is the big opportunity. That gives us scale. That will help us reach more customers. you know, our preference will be to bring partners into deals if we've got customers coming directly to us, and equally we want new partners, new channel partners who feel that they can trust that the partnership that we will form will evolve. And as they grow their capability, if that's the route that they want to go down, Aryaka will change the way that we deliver services via them to adjust to those to that evolution.
And perhaps finally, and again, it might be, but I saw a couple of months ago you launched the Ignite reseller partner program. So is that what you were outlining there, the different ways in which you engage? That's a sort of, you formalized or updated, whatever it is, this process, so that you've got an offering for the channel, regardless of, you know, how large or small the companies are you're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a number of different motions for partners, whether that's an agent partner who's more of a sales partner who wants to bring a deal to us and take a residual commission from that and effectively hand it off and go and find another one. We've got reseller partners, which is the Ignite program that you've talked about, where, again, as I just suggested, we can work in a number of different ways. And that effectively is a discount from our list price. They bill the customer. They'll take that first line support, but not always. So that's the more traditional way. But also we work with some very big global telecoms providers as well, and they've more embedded it in more of a wholesale kind of motion. So there are different ways that we work with different partners. Ignite's a fantastic program. It just gives a little bit more structure, training. It gives marketing support. We've got market development funding, various other things which go with that reseller program that we're building out. And we're building it out because we've got a lot of partners saying, you know, this is good. How do we grow faster with you? And so we've tried to put some structure around it, and we've created something for our top partners as well, which we call the Throttle program. And that's really about taking a handful of partners that are thriving and really trying to take that to the next level. And so there's a whole load of things that we do there in terms of joint go-to-market activities. We do lead development. So we're going out directly on behalf of partners to generate leads and pass them into the partner community as well. So there's a whole different level of support available depending on where a partner is in their journey.
Okay, I mean, it's been lovely to chat to you, and thank you for sharing the information around SD-WAN and other topics, shall we say. But for now, at least, thanks very much for your time, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.